Welcome to Cut the Bull, an insightful podcast which addresses the news of the day and the cultural issues plaguing our society, bringing logic and context to these topics and discussing solutions too real for mainstream pundits. Now, here are your hosts, Charles Love and Wilfred Riley.
Hello and welcome to Cut the Bull. I am Charles Love. Wilfred has the night off. I have a special show for you this evening. I've been watching news, opinion pieces, Twitter bites, as I often do, and a lot of things constantly come up about how doomed we are, but also about gender. Not just the trans issue, which may come up, but just issues between men and women. What is a woman? All this kind of stuff. And I thought it'd be great to have a conversation covering as much as we can, talking about issues facing women today. And I'm not much of an expert, so I thought I'd invite some people who would know better than I would. So joining me are three adult humans who have experience as women. We have Christy Kelly, a Christian conservative who has a interesting viral situation that kind of ties into this that we'll probably discuss later. We have Letitia Grady, also known as the reasonable Black woman, and she has a podcast and Substack at Clarity Spez. And then Lydia Leiterman, or Sour Patch Lyds, or best, the podcast Trad Queen Story Hour, not to be confused with Drag Queen Story Hour. Ladies, welcome to the show.
Hello.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for having us.
Oh, it's great to have you. I want to start off by setting the tone right away. A show of hands, who's offended that I said, ladies, welcome to the show?
Not me.
All right, we're already off to a good start. We're off to a good start because I don't want to trigger anyone, especially here at the beginning. So we have some interesting and some heavy things to talk about and some great situations we can use to kind of, piggyback on some of these issues. So where should we start? How about we start with, we're always hearing about crises, right? We hear about a political crisis. We hear about a racial, what do they call it? The racial reckoning. We hear about all these different things. But everybody's seeing there's so much angst. Everybody's, in crisis. There's a problem. So I guess I'll start with a simple macro level question. Are women in crisis? Let's go to Sour Patch.
I think they are in crisis because I think the net effect of feminism has been unbelievably detrimental, not just to women, but to everyone that women affect, which is literally every single group. It affects children, it affects men, it affects everyone. I mean, women are an important part, obviously, of humanity, and what happens to us as a whole really affects the whole world. And yeah, I'd call it a crisis. I never thought of it like that, but I think that's a good way to summarize it.
Clarity?
Yeah, I would say women are in crisis from the standpoint that feminism is backfiring on all the girls. And consequently, we are confused. We are depressed. Like, women are in crisis as a result of what they've ingested over the years relative to this feminist doctrine. And we are, at war within ourselves. And you can see that in terms of the things that many of us are doing to our bodies, many of the things that we are affirming in culture, a lot of things that are backwards. And then also we are at war with men. So yeah, we're in crisis from that standpoint.
Christy, obviously there are problems with feminism. Nothing's perfect, but net negative? Come on.
No, women are absolutely winning. Like, we are crushing it. Like, I am so shocked at those answers. Now, women, especially liberal women, are confused, but they're not in crisis. If anything, men are in trouble. They're the ones on every metric They're the ones that are in crisis. And we literally try to gaslight them all the time and make it pretend like they're not.
Wow. I have a question to follow up because of where that's going, because I was going to mention the boys, but do either of you want to respond to that first? Lydia, it looked like you were ready to go.
Well, that's an interesting perspective, and I'm happy to hear it because I'm always trying to push this positive mindset. But I think that I'm just looking around at the absolute state of culture. It's possible that I'm just oversteeped on Twitter and I'm always looking at these girls who are doing whatever for the camera and they're pretending that OnlyFans is the way to go. And I look at women my age and I look at the numbers on abortions, and it just kind of depresses me and makes me think that maybe the lessons we're hearing in public schools are actually really sinking into our heads. And we're starting to think that we need to be like men when we don't. We do have incredible talents. We're very important. We complete men, men complete us. We cannot be one without the other completely. So I think that I appreciate the positivity, but I am concerned for women because we tend to kind of, I don't know, we tend to think almost like a group. We tend to be very agreeable and kind of go along to get along. Like you see this with women's sports and bringing in these competitors who are not female, and lots of women just don't say anything. And I'm like, I think that's because we're agreeable. And I think that's going to hurt us in the long run. But I would really like to agree that we are winning, and maybe down the road, and you're correct about men, I think too, but I think that men and women are both struggling in very real, very different ways.
Maybe that's it. Maybe I can tie the two together. Maybe you're both right. So maybe I think, because, one of the things I talk about is you've all seen him, Christy's wearing this wonderful feminine, not feminist t-shirt. Well, we've all seen the alternative to that t-shirt, the future is female t-shirt, right? I saw one in the store the other day. Every time I see it, I chuckle a little bit. So part of it is what you're concerned about is a legitimate concern. And I'm sure if we probed Christy about those things, some of those things she's probably concerned about. But the crushing it piece I get because, this, I love how she says they're gaslighting boys. That's so awesome. Because it depends on how you're looking at it. So I would say that they're winning, as she's saying, crushing it, because if you look at just metrics, if you're a stats person and you line up the numbers and you talk about where we were 20 or 50 years ago and where we are now, we could take a person from 1950s and sit them here and show them what's being said on social media about how women are oppressed, the glass ceiling needs to be broken, we have no opportunities and all that stuff. And then they send them out about the world and their heads would explode, right? They'll say, so you're telling me everybody in jail, obviously close, not everybody in jail is a man, everybody who gets killed is a man, everybody who murders that man is a man, every drug overdose is a man, men aren't going to college, right? You got suicide rate, you have all these other issues going on, plus the issues that women also have. Men also have those issues too, as far as the fertility rate and not having enough babies to make up for the loss of life every year. All these other things. I mean, the women trying to be like men in some ways, and that's how they get more successful, by trying to mirror they're against the patriarchy, but in order to be successful, they think they need to mirror that same thing. They would be at a loss as to how women are missing out on whatever opportunities they may be missing out on. So from that standpoint, women are doing really well, right? They're in every space. And even where they are in these spaces, but not the majority, but just through attrition, if you have more women in college, in a matter of time, you're going to have more women move up. Those older people have to die and retire or whatever. And where are you going to get your next pool of elite leaders if you're pulling them from the colleges, if most of them are women? But then we're putting systems in place to make sure women succeed, which would be fine on its face if we just want to help people. But we're doing it under the guise of, but for these systems, women wouldn't have any opportunity. So women can't get a job unless we put systems in place. The Supreme Court just passed their affirmative action thing, And most people were talking about blacks, but then they openly admit that women benefit from it more than others. And they say, now look at what's going to happen to the women. So from that respect, I can see why Christy says they're doing really well, but we're not being told that they're doing well. And then to Lydia's concern, there are problems. We're going to get to this piece too, from a what is a woman, not what is a woman, but what are the women role? What is the role of a woman in society? Their most important job is a job. We'll talk later in the video about someone who's dismissing that role, but it's the most important role. And no one can argue whether it is or not, right? There's only one gender that can produce life actually out of their womb. We know how that happens, but you can't say because you need a sperm that it's the same as a woman having a baby. And it takes a backseat to all these other things. So that, along with, let's be real, trying to emulate men in order to change the hierarchy is a problem, because at the end of the day, you won't be a man. So those are some true concerns. So I don't know if it's a crisis, but those are concerns. So Letitia, are they both right?
I would say so, yes, because now I'm understanding what she meant. At first I was thinking maybe she was being sarcastic or whatever, but because I'm fluent in sarcasm, so I understand that language. So I thought that that's where she was going, but I definitely do see that, because in that case, if you're looking at it like that, of course they are winning. But to Sour Patch and my point, we were just basically saying that winning is really a loss, right? Because what it's ended up costing, as they're going for the win, right? We're ending up losers. And again, that is showing in how how we're manifesting ourselves on a daily basis. Again, from body image, depression. A lot of these women who are winning, according to culture and so on and so forth, they're very unhappy. Very unhappy, and there's quite a bit of narrative of the boss bitch personas that are reforming and kind of backpedaling off of a lot of those I'm a woman, hear me roar, as they started to age and are realizing, oh snap, so.
Christy,
Yeah.
any follow-up?
Yeah, no, definitely. So I think we have to be very precise. And I think your initial question, crisis kind of definitely threw me off, because when we think of a crisis, as in compared to whom and what are we talking about, right? So in compared to men, who we know the metrics you just ticked off, they're really suffering in a lot of areas. So no, I wouldn't say, but in our winning, right, what have we won? So I think when we talk about feminism and women's liberation, I think I could agree maybe in the first wave, right? So maybe in like the Seneca Falls, the 19th Amendment, okay, fine,
Oh, okay.
okay. Maybe okay, but by the time it got to like that second wave, that brought us Roe, that brought us equal pay, that brought us problems. And now I don't even know if we're in the third, fourth, we're in crazy land right now. That's where we are, right? So it's swung all the way from being something that was, okay, I can get with this, to now, no, it's a complete rejection, because like Clarity said, now it's all about, who can be a boss, and I don't need a man, and the Me Too and hoish behavior. So yeah, but when you're talking about the bare metrics, women are on average, 50% of women that are married or with a partner make more than their partner. And what's happening to their partner? Because now we don't have as many skill jobs. They're closing our factories. There's not as many labor jobs for our men, and they're being kind of pushed out of college, because now we know, you just said, more women are obtaining higher degrees than men are. So the crisis, I still say, is with the men. And the reason I say that they gaslight us, so this is kind of funny, because whenever you talk to a feminist, they always say, well, look at the presidents, and look at this, and look at the top of the corporations. And that's true, right? There's still that ceiling that but we're getting there. But look at the middle and definitely the bottom of society. That's where women are crushing it. So that's why I said they gaslight us, because they always point to the top. and assume that we still need women's liberation. We still need all these laws by the state to help us out when we don't.
Right. Like that's the only way you're going to get there. That's a great point. One of the things I want to say, so in my last book, I wrote, so it was called We Want Equality, How the Fight for Equality Gave Way to Preference. So I put a chapter basically debunking all the things they say, like, we need to fix, not saying that they're not problems, but we need to use the government to fix these issues because they're so bad. So it was race, it was income, it was religion, it was all this stuff. And when I talked about the gender stuff, obviously the 77 cents and all that kind of stuff, but I quoted I think as the elder statesman here, I don't know, one of you is probably old enough to remember that, but the old Angelique commercial where the woman used to get on the commercial and said, I can bring home the bacon and fry it up in a pan.
Yeah.
So part of that feminism was, you talk about the ways, right to vote and everything, but part of it was, anything you can do, I can do better. Remember they used to make that comment, and it's like, and all this other stuff. And what I thought about that, like Christy said, gaslighting, is we were arguing the wrong thing. And we still do it today on Twitter. We're arguing whether women can do all these things men can do. And a lot of the times they can't. Some of the time they can. Some of the times they can't, even though we pretend that they can't. Some things you just can't do. But some things you can do, or you can do, if women are doing it, but doing it separate from men, you can do it. But no one asks, but should you? Should you be doing everything? Should you have to bring home the bacon, fry it up, and do all the other things? Should you, is there an avenue if you want to do it? If the situation comes where you have to do it, a spouse dies or whatever, but that is different from creating a society where the norm and the expectation is that there are no gender roles. So I say, is that part of the problem? And we argue about gender roles, like, we'll get to children, but in schools, they're telling you that, like, my son's 7, and they were giving them all these books to try to show them that there are no gender roles. Men and women and girls and boys can do anything. So there's a sparkle boy about a boy in a dress. There's some girl who likes a flannel shirt that try to get the boys to play with dolls, the girls to play with things. So my question is, are gender roles bad in and of themselves? Because they paint it as if it's bad, but they're even the people who say they believe it, I'm not sure they all believe it. But if they do, they have to admit that you take kids, and I've said this to someone, and they had a weird argument that you take really young kids, 2 and 3, and just have them play, and you'll find that boys will gravitate to boys, that girls and boys will do different things. And they'll say, well, that's conditioning. Well, conditioning from whom? These are children of liberal parents who, I have a friend who actually said that she wasn't far out there, but she wanted to see if it was true. So she had a boy and a girl, the boy's younger, and she would give her son, dolls, or she would not encourage him to do anything, just let him do it all. So she didn't try to make him wear a dress and do feminine things, supposedly, quote unquote, but she didn't just, she made sure he had all the range of options there to do what he wanted to do. And she was like, the boy just wants to play with trucks, right? Mm-hmm. So we can't believe that she was pushing them towards trucks, right? So we are supposed to believe, one, that none of this stuff is just natural, right? And 2, that gender roles are bad. So are they bad? Anyone?
No.
Who wants to go first?
No, they're not bad. And to really lift the hood and kick the tires of this conversation, for me, with my worldview, we would have to go to the origin, which is the Bible and God, right? But most people are not ready to have that sort of conversation. But just from a pragmatic common sense standpoint, just from a biological standpoint, just from a biological history standpoint, no, gender roles are not bad. They are natural. And again, there are nuances and outliers per se, but by and large, it is what it is.
Men have to feel wanted. That's like one of the number one tricks to a man. They have to feel wanted. If they don't feel like you need them, then what's their purpose, right? So they have to feel wanted. So it's funny, growing up, there were 2 things that my mother was not going to do. My parents are still married. They've been married my whole life. My mother was not taking out the trash, and she was not pumping
gas.
That's right.
I can't remember the last time that I've taken out the trash. And my husband knows the key to my heart is when I go in my car and there's a full tank, right? I'm simple. I'm happy.
That's
Fill
true.
up my tank because
Yeah.
I hate pumping gas. So again, there's nothing wrong with gender roles. Like, yes, a man can tend to the children, but when they're sick and they have fevers and they have crying, they want mama because
Right.
we're nurturers, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Right. And what the key to what you said is they want mom. So it's not even that, well, I'm going to assume this role as a woman. That's what I do. I go and do X, which many women do because that is their nurturers. But the kid gets this. Like watching my son, hearing all this noise, watching my son is just funny to me. And I purposely would do things to make sure I don't kind of push him in any way to see what he does. He's like 3 or 4 years old. And he's like, well, like he creates these games. So he would just like say, I want to play. He comes to me because he wants to jump off stuff and you know, and push and kick and do all that stuff. And he won't go to mom. But then he's like, I hurt myself. And he's like, and he'll walk past me and mush me to the floor to get to his mother. I'm like, well, I'm right here. Yeah, whatever. Right. So it's not like I didn't teach him that. It's not like I never tell him I love him. It's not like I don't, yeah, mommy. I want that real, you know, that mother love that you can't do. You can fake it, but you can't do that, right? And we act like that's not real. So you make a great point there.
That is so crazy to me that we act like that's not real, because if you want to find out what a woman is really good at, you look at her nurturing somebody or protecting somebody or making them feel better. This is what we are really good at. And it kind of bothers me that we've removed this from our society, because this is what makes women amazing. We don't need to be like men. Women are something different and unique, and we have such wonderful talents that are completely swept under the rug because we are being pushed to be more like men. And now increasingly I'm noticing, today I talked about an ad from Maybelline showing men putting makeup on. I was like, they're just trying to invert the genders just to confuse everyone because they think it's fun or they like to destabilize society or whatever. It's like, we are not second-rate men. We are something different. And I personally am staring down the barrel of taking care of a brand newborn infant in a few months.
Congrats.
And I'm like, oh, thank you. That's a big responsibility, but I feel like I'm going to be cut out to do it just perfectly because that's what women are for. And I've told my husband, I'm like, you are welcome to play with them when they're a little bit older. Just let me in the driver's seat when they're real small. I know you're going to want to help, and I appreciate that. But at the same time,
Get out of my way.
This is what I'm supposed to do. I can tell. So I'm already gearing up for it and trying to get into the right mindset and learn what I'm doing. But so frustrating to watch the things that make men fantastic and women unique and different just swept under the rug, and all of us feel disoriented and discombobulated. I feel like we need to bring the differences in gender back so we can both really shine.
Think you get a lot of the power struggles in a marriage when the woman does have in the back of her mind, like, I can do it all by myself, right? And don't let her make more than the man and have that attitude that I don't really need you, because you never have to verbalize it, but it comes across in your actions. It comes across in your tone. It comes across in what you do or you don't do. And a lot of women, especially if the power dynamics are off, that's when you come into those tensions in a marriage. So no, gender roles, there's nothing wrong with having gender roles.
Well, Christy, to what you just said, if I like to give people their argument in any kind of debate, just to follow it through to its logical end. If they really can do it all, they are the Anjali girls, and they don't need him. So what is he there for? So what, I mean, so I know you're right. I get it from the man's side. You say, you know, he needs to feel wanted. But to this woman, to this boss lady, right? Why does she need him? She needs him to in order to have the baby, but she did that already. So what does she need him for?
Well, I think that's why we have so many single women, you know, because it started off with that image of like, fry it up, I can work, I can do it all. And then it got into what? The strong Black woman who doesn't need a man.
Right.
And so that persisted. And so now we have a whole generation of women who think that they really don't need a man, who are freezing their eggs, who are going and getting artificially inseminated or going and adopting and just having a baby all by themselves.
All right, hold on. To that. I was going to go to you. Let's just excuse me for a moment. SPL. I'm going to keep giving you different nicknames there. SPL, give me a moment.
Take it away.
Let the black folk talk for a minute. Because you said something about you said something about a strong black woman or something. Is feminism different for black women than it is for white women? Because I think it ends in the same bad role, but does it manifest itself differently? And I mean that because some of it is it's just different because you might have cultural difference. Some of it is it's the mimicry of it, like, well, they're doing it and they're going to be successful. So you made a comment about I can do it by myself, but before that we have Betty Friedan saying a woman needs a man like a fish needs a bicycle, right? So is it just like the joke where it was kind of based on truth for years ago. I don't think it's the case now, but people still make these references that black men, when they date white women, they're always overweight white women and they're not that attractive or whatever because they're just excited to be with a white woman, right? So is it that they have these subconscious markers of success? And if, I can make money, I can go to college, but if I can do the same things that single white women can do, then my status is on the same status. So does feminism manifest itself differently for black women than it does for white women, Letitia?
I would say maybe in the ultimate consequence, because there's narrative out there and even some examples where, white women, they go through the phase of, I'm a woman, hear me roar, but then they end up with husbands, right?
Right.
And then for the black woman, for a number of other factors in our community that affect the men in our community and their eligibility, we are mimicking this, because we've been indoctrinated from pre-K up to graduate school, with all of this Marxist ideology, which feminism is an arm of that. And so we are mimicking this stuff, and we're finding ourselves more single. And I am single, and I actually just did a video on my channel about what you were mentioning, Christy, in responding to a doctor, young black lady who was talking about her singleness, and she was, kind of wringing her hands about it. Mm-hmm. And she mentioned about, freezing her eggs and the whole thing. And I had a pretty much a response to that. But yeah, it does. I would say it manifests a bit for black women, slightly different in terms of the consequence. We pay a little bit more dearly. And like I said, feminism, that whole ideology is backfiring on all women, but especially black women.
Christy, is it also different because at its genesis, the one side had a different approach before everything started to change, and the other side has to deal with some real problems. So some issues that they don't have to deal with. So one being that black women always they would argue if they're single and they're doing some of this stuff, it's like, yeah, some women are saying that, like the Ebony Williams, we're going to choose to just motherhood single. We don't want a man. We just want the baby. We're going to be the Black Murphy Brown 30 years after the fact. But for some of us, it's just because we don't have the resources, not as many men that, because of the school to prison pipeline and all these other factors, there's not enough men because we need a man who's taller than us, older than us, and makes more money than us. And so we don't count the bus driver. I know I'm really beating up Ebony here. So we can't date a bus driver. So he doesn't really count. So there are no men. So they say that. While the white women, a little less now because of feminism, but what did they used to do? They used to go to get, what was the degree called, Chrissy? I forgot what the letters were, but they used to go to college to find a man to get married, right? Mm-hmm. The DRS, or whatever, they were going to college to find a husband. So is that part of the difference too between black and white?
I used to try to tell my daughter, she would, beautiful girl, when she was in college, she would get up.
Not so much now.
No, she's still
horribly ugly woman now. Oh God, she's a dog.
Well,
when she was in college, woo, she was pretty.
Well, I've been listening to some people say if you're over 25, you start losing it, But when she was in college,
back then,
I tried to tell her, find you somebody in college. And I think those are the tips that I don't know if we pass those little nuggets down to our girls in the same way that maybe, white women pass it down to their daughters, right? Also, naturally, I'll admit, Black women tend to be a little, maybe attitude, tend to be a little spunky, tend to be, and so I know I'm going to get all the smoke.
The man did not say that.
I'm used to it. But so if you're already dealing with a lack of Black men, and if he's looking at the eligible pool that's out there, right? Black women on the majority tend to be a little heavier, right? We have a lot of stuff that's stacked, against us that we have to strictly, fight against. So if we have a little bit more attitude, if we have to, maybe work a little bit harder just to naturally, stay in shape, to stay attractive, we're already fighting against so many things, but we don't want to cater to a man.
Right. Wow.
But we expect to get a man. And then we're waiting later because Black women are obtaining degrees. So we're like, oh, I ain't got time for that because I got to go chase these degrees. So we're waiting late in age, and then we're trying to get a high value man, but we have our list of what we're not going to do.
Right. So, Lydia, to that, I have another question. We talk about feminism. All of you have so eloquently talked about the dangers and pitfalls of it. But when given the other side of the argument, when I have these debates, one of the things that some of this stuff the same approach you can do with race, you can do with gender, right? And so one of the things I say about the left a lot is, do they really mean what they say? Barack Obama, climate change is gonna erode the shores in 4 months. So what are you going to do about it, Barack? I'm going to buy a $20 million mansion on the water, of course, because I don't believe what I'm saying. So in that vein, do the feminists believe what they say? And give you some examples of what I mean. So, I can do it all myself. I don't need a man. I'm successful. I'm going to climb the corporate ladder. I'm going to be the next exec. Gender roles are fake. They need to be eroded immediately. That's all bad. But if I go on a date with a man, they all do those little TikTok videos. Man, I just saw one today. Was it from one of you? Because, I've been looking at all the stuff you do. But somebody had a video where they were talking about a guy who asked them out for, people go on coffee dates now, right? They don't want it to be too stressful. I don't see how this is different. He's like, are you free tomorrow? He's like, yeah, I'm free. What do you want to do? I'd like to take you out. It's really hot. I'm feeling some ice cream. Well, I don't think I should meet you because ice cream date is beneath me. I don't do ice cream dates. I'm 24 years old and it'll be just a waste of time because I already know we have nothing in common. Bye-bye. And he was like, cool. So that's kind of what I mean. It's like, boss, run everything. I do everything, but we go to dinner. You better pick up the tab. You better take me to a steakhouse, right? Courting, he better ask me out. All these other kind of things, right? So with the exception of the extreme crazies, we know they're different, but most women, even on the left, they're afraid to talk back against the trans issue, but they're still like, we want our separate spaces, right? But why? You're the same. Are you the same or you're not the same? No, we are exactly the same. We are exactly equal, except I still want all the spaces. I want everything that helps me move higher. I want more women in college. I want everything that helps women elevate. But then at the same time, I don't want to take out no trash and pump any gas. So do you see a lot of that amongst the people that you speak with that are more liberal or feminist? They don't even have to be liberal.
Yeah. So this is the definition of having your cake and eating it too. So one of the things that I notice with movements like feminist, a little bit with the BLM movement too, was this decision to make sure that this never ends. Okay. This issue never has a solution, because if it does, we're obsolete, right? We're out of a job. No one needs us anymore. And we're not really going to have any impact on society. So we are going to keep pushing this as long as we can. We're going to keep talking about a wage gap that doesn't exist. We're going to talk about a glass ceiling that women have been shattering for years now. We're going to write articles complaining about how we have men who make more than we do because we make great money, the best money we've ever made, and we're finding a way to complain about it. It's crazy to me. The other thing too is that you can look at the way the elites live their lives as contrasted to the way they tell us how we're supposed to live, right? You don't have to get married. You can sleep around. You don't need to have kids. Oh, how are you living? Oh, you have this stable, secure marriage. You have this nuclear family. You got kids. You're telling them to go to college and do all this stuff. You're lying to us. You, like Obama, buying the Martha's Vineyard beach house, utterly ridiculous.
Right.
Al Gore flying around like he doesn't care about any of this stuff because he doesn't. They don't. They're lying and they know it. It's nothing new. So
to that point, there's a artist, her name is Sierra. I'm not sure if you guys heard of her, right?
The song, that's right.
Yeah, like the Twitter, they ate her alive because, and you know, Beyonce, same thing, you know, they're telling women to be independent and you don't need a man, and this is for the girls that's doing it for themselves or whatever. You going home and snuggling up with your nuclear family, you know?
Yeah.
And I also wanted to just kind of speak to relative to just singleness. Like I mentioned that I'm single, I'm over 40. And according to Kevin Samuels and the Manosphere and the Red Pill people, my sexual market value is gone. Okay. But and that's a perspective. I actually did a video on this also speaking about this, that, you know, there are some women out here who are single beyond a certain age. And it is not because we were feminists, you know, bought into that ideology or trying to be boss bees. And again, that goes back to you know, biblical worldviews and things like that, which is above this scope, but that does need to be considered too. There are some nuances out there for single women that are not falling in that category.
Yeah, that's true. Definitely outliers, and it does pay to keep that in mind. I'm just looking at like the really broad picture of what they're telling everybody to do, and they're just hypocrites. They're just lying about what they're saying. And I'm like,
I'm single and I'm offended by by this stuff, you know. So
you know what I have seen? So I do mediation. I do a lot of divorce mediation. So what I am seeing is people are absolutely keeping their money and their assets separate. And it's mostly my more liberal clients that I'm seeing that in. It astounds me. I'm like, you guys have separate bank accounts, like, you know, inheritance that you've come in with, you haven't commingled it. And it's mostly all the more liberal ones. And I think that feminism definitely has taken hold to where a woman is like, my money is my money. And then on the other end, a man also is protecting their assets as well. Even young men now, young men are not paying for dates. They're just not. And you saw the whole thing with like the passport bros, right? Like they're just like, we'll just go somewhere else and go get a wife because these women are crazy. But that really astounded me, where if you look at teenagers and 20-something-year-olds, they're like, yeah, we'll go to a coffee shop because we're not spending a lot of money on her, because they figured out the game. I mean, with all these apps, Tinder, I remember, you know, maybe about 10 years ago when I had a lot of girlfriends that were single, they were like, we're going out to breakfast with this man, and then we're going to go get another one for lunch, and then going out. Men have caught that game, and they're not doing it anymore.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
The funny thing about the passport bros is that the narrative around that is saying, okay, so they go and they get this foreign lady and they're thinking, oh, I hit the jackpot, she's not modernized and so on and so forth. But they bring her over here, maybe they even marry her. Then after some time she learns the culture, and they talk about how she ends up finding out that he's not really the top tier, and then they leave him and probably, you know, go with someone else. I just thought that's hilarious. But anyway,
that was one of the, I don't remember which one, whether it was Raw or Delirious. You remember that? When Eddie Murphy did those two great stand-ups, and one of them, he talked about a guy did that, and he came back, and she came home one day, I would have. That's fun. That's what, but that made me think about that. But Christy, I wanted to say two things to your point. I remember one. Let's see if I remember the other. I'll say the first one first. You talked about the separate money thing. I don't know if they're liberal or not. Probably most of them are somewhat liberal. But I got to say, you hit the nail on the head. every one of my upper middle class friends, some of the white ones, all the black ones did that. All of them keep their money separate.
Yeah.
Right.
It is so foreign to me. And I wonder if they grew up in a two-parent household where that was mirrored, because I know in my household, everything was always together. I mean, it's just a more traditional, household.
Yeah.
So I wonder if that ties something into it, because, we learn, behaviors.
Right.
In addition to buying into the divorce rates, because the divorce rates are extremely high.
Well, that would be interesting to note. I wish we could find out, because I would venture to say that some of them are both. It's both people from single parents and from married. I know some of them, my friends, were both of them married parents, but it could be a mix. But I still think, even if they are from single parents, I don't think it's a learned behavior. It is a learned behavior, but not from mirroring what they grew up with. I think it's a cultural learned behavior. This is another one of those, kind of status of what you do. It's kind of similar to the dog in the bag, handbag kind of thing. It's kind of like what you do. Yeah. But you're right about it, whether it's conscious or subconscious, it does create a situation where somewhere small in the back of your mind, you got one leg out of the relationship, like, just in case this don't work, I got to easy out. So you're setting yourself up to view things that way, and that's a problem. I remember what the other one was. So when we talk about, how women, we talked a lot about how they're assuming a lot of what we would call, quote unquote, male traits. As bad as men are doing, the one good thing men get is the more women try to be like men, you're never going to beat us. You can beat us at a lot. You can be smarter than us. You can get more degrees than us. You can have babies and we can't. Well, I don't know. There are some men that have babies now. But what you can't do is you can't outman a man. So if by nature, because you're going to act like the nature is not real. So by nature, our nature is we're suppressing our nature is to go and have a high body count, right? So be physically attracted to women and want to act. And we have to say that's not the proper way to act, right? If you're a Christian, that's not the biblical way to act. But in your mind, you're like, yeah, I would like to have 2 wives and sex with 4 women, but I'm dating. And so now all the women are being taught through feminism that they can do what I can do. They can have a high body count too. They can ghost too. But the problem is we're not as emotional as you. Like, so right. Every once in a while you get a girl ghost, you're like, man, I really liked her. I'm upset that she ghosted me. But the rest of you, like, fine, good. So I don't have to take you to the steak dinner because you're trying to prove that you can just come and have sex and leave. Okay, let's see who wins at the end of this. Mm-hmm. We know I'm not going to end up pregnant at the end of this. So, right. So men win in that respect. The more you act like men, they win. As long as now Christy's right, they lose in relationship if they marry and she's trying to be the alpha and he's the alpha and it doesn't work out. But in the dating scene, this is great, right? So all they're doing is hurting themselves. So it's interesting that you make that point. I think that was really important.
But you'll never be able to tell a liberal woman that, right? Because in videos, the Cardi B's, everything out there teaches like, oh, I can go out and just, slang myself everywhere, because why not, right? Spring break, every weekend, have this high body count. It doesn't matter. And as with a mom with teenagers, I am constantly fighting against that. Try that stupid stuff. Well, not in my house, but later if you want to, and you're going to end up crying in a corner somewhere, because 9 times out of 10, you're going to catch feelings trying to be like, oh, it's just sex. And the woman usually ends up catching feelings and getting their feelings hurt, right? Because they're trying to be like a man. And no matter what, we weren't designed to just have sex without emotion.
Right.
One way or the other, we end up, even if we tell ourselves, oh, it's just a hookup. Oh, we don't mean anything by it. Oh, we don't. Next thing we know, we're blowing up this guy's phone and he's like, you're my girl, So we need to kind of, that mentality. Now, this goes back to what you first started. Are we in crisis, right? We're confused. And this is one area that we do need to constantly combat against, because TikTok will have these young girls confused, thinking that their sexuality can just be on display and that it doesn't matter, and it catches up with them later.
Yeah, so I actually have been working on this theory for probably like a good 2.5, 3 days now. It's really interesting to me because it finally dawned on me that men have a more casual, laissez-faire approach to sex because it takes their bodies like a week to come up with a bazillion, sex cells. With a woman, it's a full month. And then if you end up with a bad man, you are stuck dealing with the consequences of hooking up with a bad man. So I think that emotional weight is directly tied to biology that we are currently trying to deny. And I hope that women start to notice that they get attached in ways that men don't, because I think modern people are starting to notice. I notice modern guys are starting to pay attention to really high body counts for women, not attractive, not the same for men as it is for women. And there's a silly little saying that I can't fully debunk. It's that a master key unlocks many locks, but a crappy lock can be unlocked by any key. And I'm like, yeah, that's a great analogy because that's exactly what we're looking at.
And you know what else is sad that I observe and how feminism has affected society and men? Because and sometimes you ask which comes first, the chicken or the egg, because it says, okay, like women, we respond to men, or everything that men do is for women. Mm-hmm. But for example, men now are regurgitating, right, what women are telling them. In other words, this whole phenomenon where men are saying, I don't want to take a lady on a date or pay for a date anymore. A lot of that has come from women insisting upon being independent.
Don't open the door for me.
Yeah, and so men have kind of acquiesced in it, and it works to their benefit, right? Because they can relax a bit and whatever. But and then to your point, when women say this whole body count thing, women are now seeing that men are having this standard, and they're starting to panic about it a bit, and so they're pushing back. And then you have men saying, oh, I don't care what her body count is. Yeah, I don't care what she did before she was with me. So you have some men now who are conditioned in this way because women have conditioned them in that way. And some men really don't care. And I feel as though that's probably more says more about them as and their character. But I just thought that was very interesting to see how men are parroting these feminist ideas that women are putting out.
Can I now? We've been going for a while. I want to get to some of these before you all have to go through some of these situations I said we were going to bring up that everybody knows on Twitter and get your opinion on them. So we could rapid fire, or if you want to go in deep, you can say what you want to say about them. But I'll just throw a couple of them out there. So Keke Palmer, really briefly for those who don't know, I don't know who that would be. Just recently had a baby by a guy. They're not married. I think they're supposed to still be in a relationship. She went to an Usher concert. He saw her outfit. He said that it was kind of inappropriate for a mother to go out like that. And, chaos ensued. And obviously everyone seemed to be more mad at him than her. Thoughts? Lydia?
See the exact same thing with Jonah Hill. He had standards for his girlfriend and everyone was freaking out. And
but the argument I saw with Jonah was like, but she was doing all this stuff when you met her.
Yeah, well, he tried to make it work. He literally told her, I don't want to waste your time. If you don't like these standards I have, I guess we're just not going to work. No hard feelings, go our separate ways. Right. And she comes back. He just had a baby. And she comes back. Look at this rude man being narcissistic and misogynistic. Girl, he is just telling you what he wants out of the relationship. And I know he's a man, but he has the right to ask for that, just like you. That sounds like exactly what's happening to a similar degree with Keke Palmer. I'm not as familiar with her, but that's the parallel I'm seeing right offhand.
But now now that they're coming after him, and now he's forcibly kissed somebody 6 years ago or something. But she didn't realize it until he shared the tweets with that mother baby mama who he's not even with because he's dating someone else. It was the whole debacle. Christy.
This is a little, it's related, but every time I see a picture of Sierra standing next to her husband and she has her whole ass out.
Oh yeah, and then she pushes him. Oh my, that blew my mind.
He looks dumb as hell to be standing next to your wife. Right. effeminate, like demasculating him. You know, everybody already thinks he's a little soft.
Let's be
like
real.
Right now, his name is
ever leave
escaping
the
me.
house
What's
like
his
that?
name?
Russell.
They
Yeah,
left the
Russell.
house together like that. He didn't say anything before they went out?
I wouldn't have got out the front door. And my husband is pretty generous. He lets me be me, but that's where he would draw the line. Because the man looks dumb. So I think in the Kiki thing, did he leave her? I think he ended up leaving her, right?
I think so. Yeah, I think so.
I know they broke up.
Right.
You almost have to save face. Also, didn't she kind of make out with Usher? Wasn't that the other part of that?
Well, everyone makes out with Usher, though.
Oh my god.
Now he serenaded her, and she was just kind of really fawning over him about it.
I mean, you almost have to leave after that, unless everybody's going to be looking at you sideways.
That's humiliating. Yeah.
Number 2, why not go and stay in house? Christy's husband pulled a gun on a kid.
I saw that.
Now he shot it too. Before disclosure, he shot at him 3 times, but he did not hit him, so it doesn't really count. Like if he was in New York City, Alvin Bragg would release him, so everything was good with that.
All right, so there's going to be a clip of that. I guarantee you. So
that's not what happened.
We have a traditional household here, right? We're traditional parents raising 2 girls. We care about their chastity. So sometimes I post too much. I'm usually quick. I'm usually like walking and tweeting. I don't really take a lot of time to craft my tweets. So it was worded weird. But what happened was my daughter got a new boyfriend. We have to meet the parents and the boy. So the boy and the mom came over. My husband is a jokester. So, very lighthearted. I care about my daughter's chastity, and I got 4 guns. You know what I mean? It was a very lighthearted statement. Everybody laughed. The boy's great. They pick my daughter up for church every Sunday. They hang out in our living room. Everybody's fine. The mom texts me, if they're over here, they're in my living room. If they're over there, they're in her living room. Like, we're texting. We're great friends. Now everything is good. It blew up. It was like my husband abused this Black boy. We never said what the boy was. My husband had a shotgun pointed at a kid's head. It was ridiculous.
Wow.
I
was watching that.
If you all didn't see this, Christy, you put it on Twitter, and people were going back and forth, and people were sharing it outside to a bunch of liberals. She's a conservative. How many views did it get?
I think it was millions.
Oh, snap.
I think it got like 10 million views.
Oh my gosh.
Somebody did a reaction video to my and Vivek's podcast, and they were like, oh yeah, that was the girl whose husband
shot the boy 3 times.
Right. I was like, y'all are, but okay. A lot of people are like, well, they were just dating, and they even this is the sick part, and this is all liberals, and I do think it was mostly either bots or Black people that were like claiming that my husband was like a pedophile and that he really wanted my daughter for himself, our daughter for herself. And I'm like, why do Black people always take it so far? Right. Too far?
Put 20 on 10.
But can we talk about the twerking video and it not getting that reaction?
Right. So I'm in a hotel room with not good video, or I would streaming, or I would show it. But you all remember this. This was a guy. He was a retired general. He's at the wedding with his daughter. His daughter wasn't married. She was just there, and they're playing the music, and she turns to the camera to twerk, and he's looking this way. Without even thinking about it, he just grabbed her arm and pulled her back. Now people spoke about it all the time, but people didn't say he had a thing for her. People weren't attacking him. It was like good for him. I think a lot of time at the beginning, people thought it was his wife or girlfriend.
Because she was like she was grown, and he didn't just pull her back. He snatched her.
Didn't say a word though, right? He just went like, not here. Don't do that, right? And she posted. The funny part is she posted it to social media. That's how it got out there.
Yeah.
But nobody came and said he manhandled her. Nobody said he was. Most of the time, it was at least the ratio was different. It was a higher ratio of people saying good for him, as opposed to you. Everybody wanted your husband in jail.
Right. And we meet the kids. Like, she's only had 2 boyfriends, but I guarantee you this boy is respectful. The other thing is my husband's a jokester. He was like, well, what should I call you? And he was like, call me sir. But my husband calls my father sir. That's what he calls him. He calls him sir, or he calls him pops, and we're not there yet. So
the next video, I don't know if you got to see it, Letitia, so maybe you know it. This is an oldie but goodie. It's got like 50 million views because it's about 10 years old. But this woman records herself walking through New York City for 10 hours, condenses it to 7 minutes. I would assume, given the argument, that she picked the worst 7 minutes she could find of all the catcalling she endured. You ever see that, Letitia?
No, I haven't.
Yeah, I put it in the chat so you can check it out. I'll send it to you so you to get your response after the fact. But most people will know it. And this is, part of it, social media is not just a woman thing. We're talking about women, but everybody, these people who feel the need to be seen and everything. So it's not like all the issues of misogyny or racism and stuff aren't real, and conservatives get beat up by you're dismissing all these terrible things. No, I'm saying be an adult. Like, have you seen the recent one? We're going to talk about men for a second. See the recent one where the young black guy's got the fishing cap on and he's fishing in his neighborhood? Have you all seen that? It was like a couple of days ago. And he's like, this is the third time somebody's come. Some white person told me that you can't fish here. And the woman's like, you can only fish if you live here. See, they don't think the colored guy lives here. And so, no, I can record. I'm like, I'm not saying that it's never happened. I'm not saying he's lying. I want to know why, unless he's been feminized by society, why he feels the need to record that and post it. It's not like he's being accosted by some big guy who's threatening to beat him up. Some woman said, hey, you can't fish here. I would just be like, okay, and keep going. Right? Or explain to her I lived there if I felt I needed to. But it's the fact that we need to post everything. But to this catcall thing, one of the key parts about it, you can go see it when you get a chance, but I'll tell you this. Let's just say, some people are catcalling. Some people are going even further than that. But the vast majority of the people are saying stuff like, hey, good morning. You look really good. Hey, beautiful. Is that catcalling?
Mm-hmm.
You're like, get out of here.
Yeah.
You know,
response, she's just sighed like,
if I'm walking down the street and I don't get looks and I don't get somebody catcalling, there's a problem.
Yeah, like, what's wrong with me?
That means I need to go to the gym.
I put on the wrong outfit.
Something.
I need to go to Sierra's house.
Yeah, well,
it's expected. If you're a beautiful woman, if you're a pretty woman, it's expected that men are going to look, make a comment, right, in a respectful, decent way, right?
Right.
It
so
used to be the norm.
It did, and feminism is trying. Let me try that again. Feminism is trying to make it seem like a bad thing, but I have seen articles from these feminists talking about I don't get catcalled anymore. Mm-hmm. I'm like, what do you want? Because 3 years ago you were writing about how offensive it is that men find you attractive and are verbalizing that to you. Mm-hmm. Which one do you want? Because you cannot have both. Maybe you're getting older at this point. I don't know. I'm not going to judge, but come on, man. Let's be honest.
I had to have this talk with my 17-year-old because she walked to the store and she called me and she was almost hysterical. And she was like, some guy followed me into the store and he was looking at me. And I was like, okay, and I just told her, I said, because we're raising feminine young ladies, but that doesn't mean they have to be, reactionary and go overboard, right? Mm-hmm. Teach her about safety, but this is what's to be expected, right? Men are going to, he didn't know you were underage, in a nice way. I'm a minor, and just keep walking.
Right. I mean, I mean, she needs to just do that and be safe, but also kind of enjoy it until she graduates college and she's old and ugly like her sister.
Right.
So I guess we should close this up and summarize by asking the most important of all questions. We started by saying, are they in crisis? Should women run the world? Because that's what Beyonce said, and that's what everyone said. I want to say something, and I think it'll hit my answer, so I probably shouldn't say it. So I'm just going to leave it for now. Should women run the world? Letitia.
I say no. I'd be afraid at that prospect. And again, people will probably have my head. I'm a traditional lady, and no, I don't want to see women running the world.
Liz, SPL. I'm going back to SPL now.
Okay, so I need to research this. I was just about to type it in my computer and look it up right now, but apparently queens were historically more bloodthirsty than kings. And that fact alone makes me want to say no. And also looking at the policies that women tend to vote for here and now, like open borders and protect everybody. And yeah, no, I'm gonna go with no, hard no.
Christy Kelly. Christy Kelly.
Ooh, that's a hard one. Can we just have an equal mix? Can we just have a can we have a good ratio?
Well, you need the
Okay.
balance, right? You need
You
the
need a
balance between
balance.
strong and
Right,
tender and all
What
these
I-
good
But here's the problem with the
What-
balance. Oh, go ahead. Let's just.
What I was going to say, what I think is smart men are going to have women around them as part of their council. You know what I mean? So I would love to see, so to your point, Christy, I don't want to see women not outside of, not participating or inputting.
Somebody's got to cook for the meeting.
Y'all, Charles
I
is
wouldn't
trying to
say
lay a
that
trap.
either.
Somebody's got to make the sandwiches when we have a meeting in the conference room.
I don't want to
Right.
Trying
get
to
the
trap
sandwiches again.
us.
I don't want to give that impression when I say I don't want to see women around the world. I'm thinking along the line of SPL here in terms of modern women right now. I wouldn't want to see modern women around the world.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's it. That's it. Yeah.
Okay.
No,
But
Kamala.
there is a place for women in leadership and in partnership with men. And I think if we could see that as something complementary and not something as competitive at every level, from the family all the way up to to the highest government, corporations, or whatever. If we saw that and took the competition aspect out of it, and men would see the value of a woman's counsel and being kind of like that secret weapon. And if we as women would recognize that power and not try to, overtake stuff,
I don't disagree with you, but I got two disagreements. No, I'm just kidding. I got 2 points I want to make. One goes back to what we all kind of agreed on earlier, this effort to break the glass ceiling, to be successful, to bring home the bacon. Not that they can't do it, but their method, for the most part, of doing it tends to be, I'm going to beat men by becoming men. So we already talked about how we felt about that. I don't need to beat that dead horse. But what I'm saying is, if that is the case, then I'm not sure I understand what the advantage of having a woman in that place is if the woman is trying to think, act, and be like a man. So she's not. So if it's an accounting firm, she can be the head of the accounting firm because she's good at accounting. So it's not saying that she's not capable of doing it, because a woman, that'd be asinine. But what I am saying is she's capable because she's really good at doing that. And she's making it a point in many cases, modern women, to not bring her femininity into it. It's like, I'm just like Bill over here. So then why do I need her if she's going to be just like Bill? Right?
Right.
Yeah.
That's one.
Real
But
quick.
wants to reply before I say the other one.
Yeah, real quick. So I'm not going to say where I live, but in the town that I live in, our city government, she's very feminine, older woman, and she just surrounded herself with 3, mind you, white, but 3 men. And everyone was surprised that she did not put women in, but I get it now. It's the balance. So if a woman knows what she's lacking and what she needs and surrounds herself with the right people,
She was lacking
in
a
her
penis?
cabinet, she can do
There you
it.
go.
But we need Biden to hang on
Yeah.
for one more year, because Kamala can't do it, but maybe some woman one day can.
And then I just want to put this out there for all the people who say women would do better. Look at the men, look at the wars and all that stuff. Like you talked about the queen, so it doesn't mean that they're going to be that nice. They're just different. They'll poison you instead of shooting you, but whatever. But how they gonna run the world when they can't run the schools? We just said they're nurturers already by nature, and they run every school system in the country. So we can't blame the men for the fact that the kids can't read at grade level everywhere.
Yep.
So
Yep.
they can't. So they are best. We are conceding that they are better at nurturing and raising kids. Then they went and got degrees, and they learned how to teach them in addition to their gender norm. They got added education, and they took on. We run the school systems, right? We are 85% of the teachers. We are many of the admins. We run school districts all over the country. and the kids are failing emotionally, academically, every metric. I don't want them running to fix the schools first, and then I'll consider voting for you for something else. How about that? Go ahead. Who wants to defend the women at the close? Who wants to tell me they're doing great in the schools?
No, no. The other thing
You're
I was
probably not even going to
night,
send your baby. Well, it'll be years from now. It might be better.
But the other thing you have to ask of, though, relative to that, unfortunately, the worldview. Are these what is the worldview of these women? Are these mostly women on the left that are running?
They're bosses. What do you mean the worldview?
Or because I would tend to think a conservative woman, would probably be a bit different in leadership than a woman that's on the left, unfortunately.
Right.
Yep.
Because
any last thing that you all want to add? Let's start with you, Letitia.
Like I said, to your point, the cities, Atlanta, Chicago had female mayors.
No, I just mean about anything. You don't have to stay on that topic. Any final thing you want to talk about? We'll come back to you. Sound back.
Come in.
This has been great to talk about ladies with ladies and with Charles weighing in and refereeing.
How do you know I'm not a lady? You don't know. I never identified as.
You know what? You're right. And I can't argue with that. I will say last night I was talking to people who are saying that men are so much more aggressive and violent than women. And I was just like, you can Google in 2 seconds the serious pandemic in nursing of bullying. That is the most female dominated field.
Right.
Rife with ridiculous bullying to the point that sometimes patients are severely hurt by it. And I'm like, girl, we got problems in our own house that we got to take care of. So can be working on that.
Right. I also in my chapter on gender in my book, I write about, you talked about the queens, the serial killers, and all these other people who've been doing things. I argue that in some ways different, of course, but the only reason women haven't done as much bad, like that men have done more bad wars and all that stuff. Yeah, because they had the opportunity to. If you had the same opportunity, there'd be a lot more women, I don't know. I mean, maybe, let me make up something, hypothetically, driving their kids into a river and killing them. I don't know. Maybe a woman would do that if they would do all these other things, yes, they would go to war and shoot somebody and do all these other things. People are bad because they're bad, not because they're male. Christy, you're closing it out. Do it.
I just think a lot of no pressure. But I just think a lot.
This is the only part that's going to make it into the show, by the way.
I think a lot of the reactions from men and a lot of the, toxic masculinity and a lot of the criticisms that we levy on men is for every reaction, for every action, there's a reaction. So they are fighting to stay relevant, and we're gaslighting them by saying, oh, that's toxic, right? So I think if we just don't swing so far to the left or the right, especially with feminism and with the toxic and with, labeling things one way or another, and just realizing like we each have roles and they're different, and that's okay.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I guess my final thought would be is, men and women are equal in essence and different in function. And there's just no need to, be a competitor, right? It's just no need. Like I can do most things that men want to, but can do, but I don't want to.
And
that's what I said, right? You can do
I really
it,
don't. And as a single person, I have decision fatigue. I do not want. I really, really would like if I go on a date, I'm like, look, order my food for me. I'll eat whatever you order me. You know what I mean? I'm to that point of decision fatigue.
Right.
Lots to unpack, but yeah, that's my final.
Yeah, leave men's masculinity alone. Let them be as masculine as they want, because he will meet the right woman who will be able to handle him, right?
And have a balance.
Kind of balance it out, right? And who wants an effeminate man with big hips? Don't nobody want that.
You sure? Because I've been on Twitter, and Twitter says a whole different thing about who wants that. I mean, runway models, athletes, Maybelline ads. We mean who wants everybody? That's who. No, I'm sorry.
No.
All right. No. So we're gonna leave it there, but I'll let you all tell everybody where they can find you and who you are. Letitia, let's start with you.
Yeah, ClaritySpeaks.com. I'm a reasonable Black woman. I do reactions, interviews, and just social and political commentary. So go to ClaritySpeaks.com, and there you can find a couple latest videos as well as links to all of my social channels. Clarity Speaks with the Z.com.
Christy Kelly.
Kelly for Humanity on Twitter and Humanity Assemble on Substack.
Sour Patch Lyds.
You guys can find me at Sour Patch Lyds on Twitter and YouTube. I'm Real Sour Patch Lyds on Instagram, or just sourpatchlyds.me for all of my socials.
That's a lot of Sour Patch. Ladies, it's been great speaking with you. And thank you for joining. I hope to talk to you all again soon. In fact, I know I will.
This was fun.
Yeah, thank you.
Nice
Thank
meeting you,
you.
ladies.
Got a country to say, God bless the US of A, land of the free and a home of the brave. God get all of the praise. I got a country to say, cause I'm Patriot J and I'm saving the day.